When you talk about economic regulation, what does that really mean?
Economic regulation basically is meant to check the markets.
How are you able then to balance these interests, the consumer, the investor, and the policymaker, in this case, the government?
Normally, balancing interest is not always easy. It is not an easy act.
As you do this, and considering that also part of the mandate is around consumer protection, there is a feeling with a section, or you'd have some murmurs of discontent in certain quarters where they feel that the protection is not enough.
No, what I would say is that the bill that consumers pay comes after so much scrutiny has been done. And as a regulator, because we are balancing the interests of the investors and consumers, we ensure that the kilowatts that gets to your house is coming at the lowest cost. Okay?
Welcome to our podcast series on energy matters. My name is Norman Mudibo, the host. We talked about fuel pricing, and now I'm glad to be joined by Dr. John Mutua, who is the director in charge of economic planning and strategy. So we're going to talk really about electricity tariffs, what really goes into that. Today you receive your bill, and the next month it is different. So all that and some of the questions that you, the consumer, has been asking today, we have our expert in that area, and he is going to talk more, going to clarify some of the questions that you have. So welcome to this series, Dr. Mutua.
Thank you so much, Norman, and it's my pleasure being on your show. Just to say that I'm Director Economic Regulation and Planning, because now our instruments have been changed. So so there's a bit of change.
Yes.
But of course, the work still continues. We are responsible for economic regulation function of the authority. But of course, EPRA undertakes also technical regulation. So it is us who undertake the economic regulation function of the authority. And that includes energy pricing. Both when I talk about energy pricing, I'm talking about electricity prices, petroleum prices as well. Again, energy planning in the sense that we have to plan for the future, both the medium term and the long term planning as well. In addition, also we do also undertake what we call research and policy analysis, data analytics, and we run a research and innovation conference every year just to support the economic regulation function. And also we are responsible for the corporate planning that includes strategy. I mean, what you said earlier, where we look at the corporate issues of ISO strategic plans, and also ensuring that the performance management of the authorities is well taken care of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you've talked broadly around the role of economic regulation, the planning, the strategy, the research bit. I want to just focus for the sake of our consumers. When you talk about economic regulation, what does that really mean? How can me as a consumer, and those who also are watching, how can they relate it to their day-to-day living? Just unpack it, break it down for us.
Okay, thank you. Economic regulation basically is meant to check the markets. Let me just put it like that. When you look at the services that are provided in the energy sector, whether it is electricity, whether it's pipeline, normally what you find is that the suppliers tend to be monopolistic in nature, and that's why interventions come in the sake of having oversight for consumer protection, ensuring there is efficiency in the market, ensuring security of supply, and ensuring that the services that are provided into the market are provided in just and reasonable prices. And also there is fair pricing and also transparency in the way you are undertaking your function, so that then the providers of these services do not exert their monopoly power and take advantage of consumers. So basically that is why we have the economic regulation, and these issues are to do with pricing. You also want to ensure that there is consumer protection. You want to plan for security of supply, and also ensure that there is efficiency in the market. Sometimes the issue of efficiency in the market comes in the sense that you may have one dominant player who may even undercut others by even charging lower prices, or maybe trying to lock everybody from the market. And that's why the regulator has to come in to ensure that there is also open access for services, and everybody in the country gets services at the right price. Yeah.
Being the regulator, of course, there are series, there are series of both legislative, legal instruments that then EPRA, as the regulator of this sector, leverages to ensure that you're not only regulating, but also you're trying to create a balance, especially with the consumer at the center, but also ensuring that the investor also is able to benefit, able to recoup, able to have a return on investment regarding aspects of the sector, but also the policymaker, which is the government, is also able to benefit from a policy and fiscal perspective. How, in your opinion, and being in charge of economic regulation, the planning, when you're doing this on a daily basis, how are you able, and again anchored in the law, because this is in the law, how are you able then to balance these interests, the consumer, the investor, and the policymaker, in this case, the government?
Okay. Thank you, Norman. Normally, balancing interest is not always easy. It's not an easy act. Because again, you have to ensure that you are the center of everybody. You are not skewed towards one party. Yeah. So normally, the way the constitution of Kenya is, we have the parliament that does the legislation. So their work is to legislate and produce these, and like, for example, the Energy Act. Then you have so that is the parliament. And when I talk about parliament, is the National Assembly and the Senate. And then we do have the executive, that is the government, that is led by His Excellency the President and the cabinet ministers and the ministries, the state departments and parastatals and other state agencies. So that is the executive. Then we do have the judiciary. So judiciary, their work is to ensure there is compliance. So the executive executes, then judiciary ensure there is compliance, and the parliament, their work is to legislate. And now as a regulator, that is actually the role. We have to ensure that we are in between. When we ensure the legislation that have been passed by parliament are implemented in the right way. Again, when it comes to policies and decisions of government, because every administration has its own policies and programs they want to achieve. Like now we have the bottom-up economic transformation agenda. So you find as a regulator, we have to ensure that we support the government in delivering that agenda. And of course, we will be called upon to be in between there to ensure that now the stakeholders, because again, government does not do things. Government actually provides policies, but it's the private sector in most cases that does the investments, and they have to recoup their cost. But when they are recouping their cost, it's the consumer who pays. Yeah. There is no investment without consumers. So as a regulator, we have to come in and ensure that we are the bridge that actually moderates to ensure that the investors are getting a fair return on their investment, while the consumers, who are the payers of these services, are also getting a price that is affordable. Affordability is not an issue of how low our price is whether that is the right price they should be able to pay. And that is what we ensure that we have to balance and ensure that it happens. Yeah.
Yeah. So based on your explanation, what I deduce from that is you're not just a regulator. You're also a facilitator. You're an arbiter. You are an enabler. You're a policy implementer. And in that case, you really have to take a lot of things into account as we make the decisions. And I imagine also data really plays a bigger role. Now, as you do this, and considering that also part of the mandate is around consumer protection, there is a feeling with a section, or you'd have some murmurs of discontent in certain quarters where they feel that the protection is not enough. And especially when you look at your monthly electricity bill, it tends to, fluctuate and all that. So 1 month is a certain figure, the next month it has shot up, and there are usually questions that are asked. And I'm sure even you, the consumer, these are some of the issues that you have to grapple with, even on a daily basis. But here we have the expert who is really going to really break it down for us, for you as the consumer, to be able to know what really goes into that. So, Una Director, just want you to unpack it for us when it comes to electricity tariff setting. What is it that you consider when you're doing your competition? I'm sure for those who really excelled in mathematics and the physics, chemistry, all these sciences, I'm sure all these come into play, at some point. So what is it that you consider? But also the back of the mind, knowing that you have to balance this interest. You have to be seen to facilitate, to enable, to protect. What is it that you consider?
Thank you, Norman. That is a good question because many Kenyans always ask me, including my relatives, even at home.
Yes.
Normally, when it comes to electricity, for example, if we can start with that, what consumers pay is a monthly bill at the end of the month. But what maybe people don't know is that before you get your monthly bill, a lot of processes have taken place for you to get that kilowatt hour that you pay, at your home, either to consume, when you are cooking, you are lighting, you have gadgets, the fridges, and all if you are a manufacturer, you are running industries with electricity. So some manufacturers pay a lot of, they use a lot of kilowatts hours and also pay a lot of money. But when it comes to pricing of electricity, it has to begin with how we plan, for example. How does a country plan for its future to provide electricity? So we have generation. So you have to have a plan. Maybe it's another conversation. We can touch on what we call the energy planning.
Yes.
But it begins by planning for generation. Because electricity is a supply chain, which starts with the generation of electricity. And then once that power has been generated, it has to be transmitted and distributed. When it comes to distribution, you have to develop a network to distribute it.
Yes.
And then there is retailing of electricity. Right now, when you look at the way you interact with the other players, as a consumer, you interact with Kenya Power. But remember, Kenya Power is buying power from a generator. Yeah. It is using the transmission system that belongs to KETRACO, the Kenya Electric Transmission Company, to transfer the power from the Lake Turkana wind, for example, through a transmission line to Suswa substation. And then now from Suswa substation, it is taken to the load center. The load centers and demand centers, where consumption is happening. So the power will be transmitted to Nairobi, for example. We can use that as a context. So the process of getting that power from Loyangalani, or even that power from Okaria, or getting from the hydros, the Seven Forks. I know those who did some geography, they remember about the cascades within the Tana River, where we have the Kindaruma, we have the Masinga, Gitaru, and others. So electricity will be generated there, but it has to be transmitted to where the people are. So there is a cost of generation. The cost of generation is what goes to build a power plant. And it costs billions of shillings to build a power plant. For example, what you see to building a geothermal power plant, like the ones in Okaria, you see for Kengen, like Okaria 5, which is the biggest geothermal power plant, it will cost you almost to 80 billion to put that. To 80 billion? To 80 billion, 80, to put that infrastructure. It's a big power plant, isn't it? Like Turkana is a cost of about 76 billion, a 300 also wind power project. But then you have to actually do, so we have the cost of generation, and that is the cost of putting a geothermal plant, and then you'll get a price per kilowatt. In most cases, the price, the selling price maybe of a geothermal will be close to maybe 6 shillings to 7 shillings. Others are higher, tariffs as well. But geothermal basically is what we call a base load. It has slightly a cheaper tariff. Now you go to hydros. The hydropower that we have was actually was done many years ago. Most of them in the 80s, others in the late 70s. So these plants have already been amortized. They have paid all their capex.
Yes.
So you find the electricity price that comes from that plant is like 3 to 4 shillings per kilowatt hour because it has paid off. And then we have the wind power, for example. When those turbines are running, people think it is for free because now wind is given by God. Of course, wind, even solar, is God given, for example. But somebody has to actually manufacture a turbine. Like the ones we have, like in Lake Turkana, is by Festus. These are Danish turbines.
Yes.
The one you see in Ngong for Kipeto Wind, that is General Electric turbines. And all these turbines are not manufactured here. They have to be manufactured, tailor-made for a particular wind speed, and shipped and then installed. And the installation of that, from the EPC contracting, you have also financiers that also like pay for these projects. When we are signing a PPA, a power purchase agreement, there are financiers who are there. So the cost of generation will cover the cost of financing the project, the EPC contractor who has done the project. You also have to acquire land, also ensure that you have some way leaves.
Yes.
Yeah. And then the transmission cost, this is the cost of transmitting electricity in high voltage. When I talk about transmission costs, this is the cost that is incurred by transporting a kilowatt through high voltage lines. High voltage lines in Kenya are 500 kV, kilovolt DC, direct current line, like Ethiopia, Kenya. It's the biggest in sub-Saharan Africa. I think 500 kilovolt direct current line. Then we have 400 kV, like the one going to Mombasa or the one going to Okaria, Lesos. Those are 400 kV lines. Then you have 220 kV, smaller lines. And then the other line is 132. So 132 and above, that is considered transmission. And it requires a lot of investment. When you are investing in the transmission network, also you have to actually resettle people. So the cost of resettlement, the cost of building the towers, most of them you can build them in China. They are assembled somewhere because we don't have like strong metals and the strong steel industry where you can manufacture the towers you see. So all these are important.
Yeah.
And then within distribution, then the network. So the power is transmitted. So there is a cost of transmission, just to put things into perspective, because the government almost actually subsidizes transmission. They give money to Ketraco to build transmission lines, or maybe KPLC, because it's not profitable business as such. The business of transmission is one that is long-term. Transmission lines take 50 years, So it takes also time to recoup your cost. You cannot have a short-term contract. And then from there is now the distribution network. That is what KPLC runs on most of the time.
Yeah.
So 99% of the network we have is KPLC. But that does not mean we don't have other players. Tatu City, for example, they have Tatu Power, which actually transmits. In fact, for them, they generate and distribute power within Tatu City. There is no Kenya Power. The metering system is theirs. The other so the Tatu City supply to Tatu Power supplies to Tatu City. So that people don't think it is a pure monopoly, not like that. Konza City, for example, they are licensed to also generate and distribute power within the new city, Konza City. There is no Kenya Power metering in Konza. It is Konza Power that is owned by the city itself. And then also, for example, Two Rivers, we have Athena's Power that actually generates power and also distribute to customers. So when I look at, now answering your question,
Yes.
what the customer pays is the investments that have been done for generation, for transmission, for distribution, and also for the retailing. And along the supply chain, what you find is that when you are generating power, because you don't have enough money, you have to borrow money from the banks. So you get loans of up to 20 years, even 30 years, and you have to pay them. So that cost will also go to the bill, okay? But eventually, what is important is that as a regulator now, the way we ensure that the customer gets a fair price is where like we have to make sure that when a utility is signing a PPA, the PPA is signed at the right price. Yeah, you have balanced all the various costs. We have looked to ensure that the cost that you are borrowing is the cheapest you can get in the market, so that you don't just get expensive loans and you want to pass that cost to consumers. And then the other issue we look at is that what you are talking about, like the fluctuating, because I think I did not mention about the thermal power plants. I think I did mention that. So in addition to wind, we also have solar power plants. Those ones are easy because you generate using solar, the kilowatt comes to the system and it is consumed. But you only have solar 7 hours in a day in Kenya, and is one of the best. Because good solar runs from maybe 9 in the morning to about 4 p.m. And then at night, you don't have the solar. At least wind, you have it throughout. But when it rains, like I saw some statistics from the newspapers this morning that wind and solar production, the last 3 months has gone down. Why? Because we have been having heavy rains. When it rains, almost you get zero wind, you get zero solar. And that's why they say you are importing so much from Ethiopia, because now you have to get the deficits from by importing from Ethiopia or even Uganda.
Yeah. So that answers that question, because also there have been questions around why are we importing power from such countries as Ethiopia. There's also Uganda, probably based on the power pools that we have. Probably it's an area also for our consumers, for them then to understand the ecosystem and to understand the dynamics, especially in the electricity subsector, to be good. There's Ethiopia, there's Uganda, and there are other efforts. And I guess this is also guided by, and you'd correct me if I'm wrong, the least cost power development plan, so to speak. Just want to shed some light on that in light of some of these questions that consumers ask. Why are we importing power? Why are we doing this? We'd just like the consumers also to understand the wisdom around it, and especially when it comes to just ensuring security of supply, quality of supply, but also ensuring that it is priced, at the right, very fair level, that then also, in trying to balance those interests that we mentioned earlier. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Electricity is very unique, Norman. And, when Kenya became independent, we became independent in 1963, the population was maybe like 5 million people. Yeah. By now we have 56 million, going to 60 million very soon. So population and production and the industries are growing as the population increases. So when you are planning for electricity, you have to ensure, first of all, you look at demand. How is demand growing? Yeah. And demand is usually driven by the GDP, for example, the gross domestic product. And as the GDP expands, so is power needs also expanding. And then also the population, in Africa, we are gifted with, unlike the Western countries, the population growth rate is a bit higher. Kenya, I think we are almost 2.9%, 3% growth rate. Some countries have almost negative growth rate.
Yes.
So we are growing, and I'm not seeing us slowing down as such, maybe in the next 20 years. So when now we are looking at electricity that eventually will be sold, you have to think about how do you plan to ensure there is security of supply.
Sure.
And security of supply has to be supported by various technologies. For us in Kenya, we thank God, we are endowed with geothermal resources. Right now, we are using maybe close to over 1,000 megawatts of our power is from geothermal. And then we have hydro. So, but the potential of geothermal in Kenya is like 10,000 megawatts. Mm-hmm. That is the potential. So if we can expand our geothermal exploration, we can get up to 10,000 megawatts. Mm-hmm. But it costs money to drill 3 kilometers under the ground and get steam.
Yes, allow me to interject. Now that we've mentioned geothermal, we've just come from the World Geothermal Congress in Canada, and I'm sure as a regulator, I presented very strong case for investment into this particular space. Maybe you could just mention something around that and the potential based on the numbers that we've mentioned, 10,000 in terms of the potential, and then we proceed.
Yeah, Kenya is blessed with the geothermal, and I think during the geothermal conference that happened last week in Canada, because Kenya will host the next conference for the world, I think in 2029. So the baton has been handed over to Kenya. And the reason why Kenya is because we have demonstrated ability to actually generate power from geothermal with our own engineers. Right now, KenGen, GDC, they have engineers who are able to drill, generate that electricity, drill the steam. The steam is converted into power, and it is sold to homes and industries. So Kenya is very well endowed with the geothermal. The entire Rift Valley, we call it the Rift region, from Okaria, from Bongoria, Sirali, going all the way to Lake Turkana. That valley goes, it runs away from Israel, Ethiopia, through Kenya, Tanzania, to Lesotho, even those countries down south. It is a rift. So it is full of steam, basically. But in Kenya, we have a lot of it. So it is one of our advantages that we have, because once you generate electricity with the geothermal, it is not affected by forex adjustment as such, because the steam itself is God-given, is a resource that is here. So what you do is to import maybe the equipment and install the equipment to convert the steam into electricity. Yeah, so we are looking at a space where Kenya is going to be a dominant player, and also have other uses of geothermal in addition to only electricity, like fertilizer, for example. I think you are aware that already KenGen in their Okaria Energy Park, they have already gotten players who are going to be generating electricity from getting actually steam from KenGen and converting that steam, and now actually manufacturing hydrogen and also fertilizer and ammonia. So meaning that plant will be able to take care of 50% of fertilizer, meaning we will not be importing more fertilizer, and that will be because of geothermal.
Yes.
So we have our geothermal is a resource that we take pride in. Yeah, but it is expensive. It is heavy in terms of when it comes to drilling, but when it comes to, because it has what we call higher load factors. It is a base load. If you have 100% installed capacity, geothermal will give you 94 to 98%, meaning that the economies of scale, and that's why the tariff now becomes lower. Because of the economies of scale, you're able to get a lower tariff from geothermal.
Yeah. Want to now go granular, and especially basing it on the monthly bills. I'm sure as a consumer, we'd want to know what really happened. Just to break it down for a typical consumer. Yes, you've given the context, but now I want to drill it down to, I've received my pay bill, my electricity bill. Probably it has gone down. Then after some few days, you hear that yes, from next month you'll pay slightly higher because of certain components that go into that pricing. What really happens now from a consumer perspective, and for the consumers really to understand from this level, at this level, so that then we're able to see, some of these questions that usually come up. Why is EPRA, raising electricity prices and all that, and there is nothing really. So what is it that usually you see to make those decisions? And I'm sure they are data backed and all that, and also just looking at what is happening around. And still on that, when you have prospective investors or investors who just want to come and help us then increase our capacity to generate more, and therefore at some point, push. What is the kind of due diligence that is done to ensure that, yes, we get, a fair price, but also value for the investment that will be put into it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Norman. That is a very good question. As you mentioned earlier, that you mentioned about the least cost, which is now called the electricity plan. The name least cost just suggests you have to go for the least cost technologies, and that is what happens.
Yes.
But every 3 years, so the least cost is in terms of generation, in terms of transmission, and also in terms of distribution. So you want to get the least cost to supply a kilowatt.
Yeah.
Now, every 3 years, Kenya Power, which is now the end utility, they have to make an application for a tariff for what they will be charging for the next 3 years. So we do it like the last one. I think you were around. We did it in 2023.
Yes.
Whereby we came out with new tariffs that are applicable until 30th of June this year. But now we have gotten an extension because of the economic situation after the global crisis, because of the war. We may delay a bit to release new tariffs because we wanted the global shocks to be managed in a fair way. But basically, what happens every 3 years, Kenya Power will submit to the authority what we call a retail tariff application. But that retail tariff application has what we call revenue requirements. So revenue requirements is the total amount of money the company requires every year to pay for the cost of generation, the cost of transmission, the cost of distribution, and also include some return, a fair return to the sector. And when you look at now that revenue requirement every year, for example, in the year 2023, they required close to about 180 billion.
Yeah.
So that is the amount of money that will be required, what we call non-fuel revenue requirements, because fuel is an adjustment to the customers. And so typically now to a common, what if I speak in a simple terms, you just break the 180 billion shillings, you can break it to per month. You get like, if you divide 180 billion divide by 12, you almost get to about 11 billion or 12 billion every month, but now has to be paid by KPLC, you see? And then when you look at what you are dividing with, you are dividing maybe by 13 billion kilowatt hours that are generated each year. So if you divide 180 by 13 billion, you can almost get like what we call non-fuel tariff will be close to maybe about 16 shillings. Okay? So the cost of generation on average, when you look at the cocktail of on generation technologies, geothermal, wind, solar, HFO, that means what we call the thermal power plants, the average is about 10 shillings. Okay? The cost of generation. But then, as I said, there is a cost of transmission and distribution. So there is another 6 shillings you add to that.
Yeah.
So like the cost of the cost of providing electricity by just installing the capex and ensuring the transmission systems and distribution networks are working is about 16.08 shillings now per kilowatt hour on average. That is minus the taxes, and that's why you add. And the reason why it is 16 is because some of the consumers will pay even 12 shillings, like the big manufacturers, because they use a lot of power, and the losses at the factory is lower because they are supplied at high voltage.
Yes.
So you find they have tariffs of 12 shillings, 13 shillings, 14 shillings. Yet the one for consumer is a bit higher. So what I'm trying to say is that what you call the non-fuel tariff is that tariff we pay for generation and transmission and distribution. And as I said, the generation will be about 10 shillings. If you combine transmission and distribution, it's about 6 shillings. Okay?
That brings to
about 16.08. Yes. That is where we are.
Yeah.
And then from there, we have the taxes and levies. So when you get a typical bill now, the consumer pays, it will have what we call energy charge rate.
Yes.
So the energy charge rate basically is what the consumer will pay per kilowatt hour to enable the system. When I talk about electricity system, Kenya Power is not the only player. It's only they are the ones who who make the application of the tariff. But
Yes.
KenGen,
Yes.
we have generators who get almost 65% of the costs that go to the consumer is generation cost. It's very expensive because you are assembling the power plants, converting the energy to get a kilowatt, and then we have the transmission. So the transmission now, out of the 6 shillings, you'll find the transmission may take about like close to 1 shilling. The reason why 1 shilling now or 2 shillings for now is because the government has paid for the capex. So we compensate for O&M, operation and maintenance. But as now we also allow the private sector to develop the transmission network. We have to compensate them for the investments. Because and KETRACO now is a government-owned enterprise, although there has been discussions on how to progress that. Right now, KenGen is a fully government-owned enterprise, meaning they would rely less or zero on government budget. So they will not be in the balance sheet of the government. They have been taken off the balance sheet of government. And so is KPLC, KETRACO, and the other company is GDC. Only REREC, the Rural Electrification and Renewable Energy Corporation, will remain as a state agency. And they will get direct budget allocation from the state. Yeah, but now going forward, I think just to say that the way the tariff will be conceptualized, that we'll have to ensure that the costs for transmission are still covered. And of course, that does not mean that the prices will be high. But just to unpack that tariff, so we have now the energy charge rate, which is actually the rate to recover the cost of the investment. The capex for the power plant, the towers you see, and also the lines you see for the distribution network. And also it has some component of a fair return to Kenya Power. And then the other component that we do have, when now we generate electricity, there's something called the fuel energy cost. The fuel energy cost is when the thermal power plant generates electricity, for example, that fuel, that quantum of fuel that is consumed every month by each power plant is all put together. And that also includes the off-grid systems. Like Mandera town consumes to close to 10 megawatts. But Mandera is not connected to the national grid. So it has to be run on diesel power plants. And so is even some areas of Moyale, Eluak, some of the islands in Lake Victoria. Also, they have some diesel plants that are generating electricity. So all this fuel is put together because you don't want the tariff to be discriminatory. So the way we do it is that we get all this fuel from Mandera, from everywhere, and now it is it is costed and spread across all the customers. And that's why you find like the fuel cost per kilowatt hour, including the cost of steam or some of the geothermal plants. It's good to qualify that. That KenGen, for example, the 280 megawatts, the Okaria 1 and Okaria 4, the fuel is supplied by GDC. The steam cost at 2 cents is supplied by GDC. And that is also a pass-through cost. So when you talk about fuel, it doesn't mean it is a diesel, it is a HFO, air fuel oil. No. It also includes the steam cost for some of the plants. Of course, some of the geothermal plants, the tariff is meshed. It is just one tariff. But where like the steam is being supplied by GDC, like now the case of some of the Okaria plants for KenGen, and also Menengai plants are also supplied by GDC. So that fuel is the other component. It's about 3 shillings. Yeah. And then the other important factor is forex adjustment. Most of the contracts that we have, they are dollar denominated. So most PPAs, they are in dollars or euros. I think we have 2 that are in euros. That is Lake Turkana and Rabai Power are in euro. The others are in US. If it's private sector, you find they are in US dollars per kilowatt hour. The reason why in dollar, because not everybody respects your currency. Investors are always risk averse to the fluctuation that may happen in case the local currency is devalued. And that's why they go for, they still want to actually sign a contract in US dollars. But when we sign now in US dollars, and Kenya Power is actually selling electricity in Kenya shillings, that is why we have the forex adjustment. Because you have to adjust Kenya Power, because they are going to incur money every day to buy dollars, is it? To pay the generators. Also, when spare parts for KenGen, also when spare parts for maybe Kenya Power, They need spares. They have to buy them also in dollars. And then what happens? They start forex adjustment. Then the other part is inflation. Sometimes prices change. We have 20 years contract, but prices are not constant every day.
Yeah.
So we have to adjust for inflation every 3 months, every 6 months.
Yes.
And that is a pass-through cost. The other pass-through cost we pass is the WALMA, the Water Resource Authority levy. If you are generating electricity for more than 1 megawatt, you pay a levy of 5 cents, but they have actually increased it to 1 shilling.
1 shilling. Yes.
But you have not actualized that yet.
Yeah.
So when you look at your bill, then it has the energy charge rate, it has the fuel, it has the forex adjustment, it has inflation, it has the Water Resource Authority, and then now it has the VAT.
Yes.
The VAT, the value added tax, you pay it on consumption, and also there is also the 5% the rural electrician levy. That is a levy that is charged to extend the network in the rural areas. So those are the components. So you find now the bill, if you are using 0 to 30, your bill is coming to about maybe 20 shillings right now. So such that if you are buying 30 units, you are paying like 600 shillings. But the price is about maybe 12, let's say like 12 shillings, the non-fuel.
Yes.
If you add some fuel and you have taxes, it comes to about 20 shillings for the lifeline. For the other consumers, it goes to 25. For industries, it's ranging right now between 14. For high industries like what we call commercial industrial 5, up to, so they are the lowest tariff. And then the small commercial, they almost pay close to the domestic tariff because the losses at that level is a bit high. Yeah, but so basically that is, I would say that is how the tariff is. Yeah.
As we wrap this up, how is the power market going to look like? And the last question is just to address some of the misconceptions, especially around electricity and how you set the prices as you wrap up. Yes.
Okay, thank you. I think traditionally Kenya, since independence, and the KPLC is more than 100 years old right now. And people know it as a monopoly that gives them power. That has been the market structure, where we started with the KPLC generating, transmitting, and selling the power. But then with the Power Act of 1997, generation was split from KPLC, KenGen was created, and IPPs came in. And then 2006, we went also into further to unbundle transmission and distribution. KETRACO was created to undertake transmission of power, and KPLC was to remain as a distribution company, for example. But we didn't change, so Kenya Power still has continued to transmit. Of course, most of the transmission network now is owned by KETRACO. Out of the maybe 9,000 lines, maybe KETRACO 6,000 lines belong to KETRACO, KPLC about 4,000 transmission lines in terms of network, kilometers of network, sorry. But now with the Energy Act of 2019, of course, we have unbundled now the transmission from distribution so that we create a system operator, a transmission system operator, and also a system operator. And then we have distribution companies, because it's no longer going to be KPLC alone. We are going to have many other distribution companies being licensed. I was in Germany last week. Germany has 850 companies that are distributing power. Some are small, others are big. Now in Kenya, we are going to unbundle now distribution, where we will be able to license other players to provide distribution. Of course, we have mini grids, but mini grids are very small. When you talk about distribution, you are looking at utility scale companies that will be distributing power. So basically now the new electricity market, what we call electricity market, bulk supply, and open access regulation, is a regulation that it has been gazetted. And is now we will be transitioning into its operationalization, and it is creating capacity markets. For example, instead of Kenya Power signing contracts with the IPPs, we are creating a market. So we are going to have a market where there is a wholesale market for electricity that is generated. Yeah. So you create a wholesale market, which is managed by a market operator. Think of the Nairobi Stock Exchange, for example. When you are buying stocks, you know, you can buy stock from your vendors, isn't it? Companies that are actually licensed by CMA, Capital Markets Authority.
Yeah.
You don't care. You just, CMA will buy you. I mean, you buy your shares to a company that is licensed. If it is, for example, Standard Bank, for example, investment bank, we have Diane Blair, just the same way like in the power sector. We are creating now an electricity market with a system operator and a market operator. And because we are a small economy, for us, we want to unbundle, first of all, we introduce competition in bringing capacity. Like even geothermal power, wind, solar, all these technologies, we have a platform ensuring that we have a way of ensuring there is competition in bringing these technologies. So that is one. And so there will be a market for capacity. Capacity is what we call farm power. Power that you can rely on. You can have a long-term contract. But then you have energy. There are people who just generate energy when it is needed. So we create an energy market. And then the other market we are looking at is what we call ancillary service market, whereby like for example the system is experiencing disturbance, a player can be licensed who will come and stabilize it, either with battery. That's why you hear battery storage.
Yes.
Somebody can deploy battery storage and actually give you that service. Or even you can run the geothermal, the thermal power plants to actually, when wind generation goes down, you tell them to ramp up very quickly and stabilize. So they sort of give you a service that is supposed to enhance the frequency of the generation. So that is within the generation segment. Then after generation, now we have the wholesale market. That will be manned by the market operator. The market operator does not own generation, neither will they be owning distribution. So their work is to ensure that when electricity is generated, it goes through the transmission lines and now gets to the wholesale market space. Okay? And then from there, they can now match it to whoever wanted it. So they are in between the seller and the buyer. Them, they don't own the kilowatts. They are just matching bids, just the way Nairobi Security Exchange does. Yeah, like recent when the KPC went off online, for example, NSC was just matching bids, isn't it? Yeah. Somebody will say, I want to buy this number of shares. The same way in electricity, people will be saying, I want the capacity for 1 year. I want to buy at 6. So they will look for somebody in the market who will be able to buy. So that is the kind of market you are creating. So now the market operator and the market operator will not be the system operator. But what you are saying, we want to start with Ketracom being the system operator, looking during transition. In a way, they will also have a department that will run the market. That is what how other markets have grown.
Which are some of these markets where we are drawing these lessons from?
So we have been able to draw the experience of the Nordic countries, like Denmark, for example, like Norway, like even Germany, where we are, like even Australia, Brazil, Mexico. Mexico was a country that had long-term PPAs like us, without transitioning into a power market, where like long-term contracts are not that important. I think I forgot to mention one segment of the market called the day-ahead market. So like there are people who will just be consuming. Like if you know you are going to work, like these guys who run this studio, maybe if, for example, the studio will have a lot of activity. You can buy more power to use because now you are busy that day. That is called a day-ahead market. And then there is something called the intraday market, whereby like other needs, somebody's power plant may collapse. Yeah? Like Kenyan may tell you tomorrow I'll give you power, but it comes tomorrow, there is something that is not working. Then somebody else will come in and say like, okay, Kenyan is down, I can give you. They develop plans to meet that. There is something called the intraday market. So all these markets are important. And then in addition to that, I think the question you were asking earlier about the East African Power Pool, we are going also to interlink. We are going to actually interact with the East African Power Pool and also the South African Power Pool. And eventually what we call the Africa Single Electricity Market. We'll go live maybe later. But right now we'll be interacting. Like now we are interconnected with Ethiopia, we're interconnected with Tanzania and Uganda. So we are already trading, bilateral trading. As we speak today, Kenya is importing 200 megawatts of power from Ethiopia. 140 from Uganda.
Yeah.
And there is also transfer of 100 megawatts to Tanzania. So close to 350 megawatts is already being traded. But there is no market that is a real market. Like how do I put it? It is not a real settlement market. It is settled like end of the month. But when you have a pure power market, things will be settled even some are day during that day, others at the end of the ban.
Yeah. I think as we've heard, there's a lot that is happening. We should be expecting a lot, especially unbundling this sector so that then the consumer, because I'm sure all these decisions, all these initiatives to really unpack and to unbundle the market, increase capacity, they are meant also to benefit the consumer. So these are initiatives that we really need more time, at least for the consumer to understand that at the end of it and all, at the center of it all, it's you, the consumer. But I just want to wrap this up by you letting us know and just to clarify some of these misconceptions, especially around the electricity space, around the bill and all that, as we now wrap it up. Yes. Mm-hmm.
No, what I would say is that the bill that consumers pay comes after so much scrutiny has been done. And as a regulator, because we are balancing the interests of the investors and consumers, we ensure that the kilowatts that gets to your house is coming at the lowest cost. Okay? And also we ensure that the billing by KPLC, because again we monitor and we ensure, and we ensure that there is compliance with the set. Once we set a tariff category,
yes,
we ensure that you will be charged within that tariff category. If there is a time of use tariffs, which we are not able to talk today, we ensure that the billing for time of use will be for the period that is provided in the tariff, like from 10 p.m. to 6 in the morning. So the units that are billed at a certain point or a certain time, then they are compensated as per the rate that is gazetted. Because when you approve in Gazette. So I think Kenyans, we ensure that Kenyans pay for what is optimal, and what has been actually been adjusted, and of course looking at the other parameters that drive the various cost centers. We ensure that we bargain for the best of the customer. And then also, in addition to that, when we are reviewing the tariffs, we don't do it alone. We invite consumers to come and provide comments. Like recently, you remember we had sent a notice to engage with the consumers.
Yeah.
And that is a platform that they come in and even express, their dissatisfaction with the billing process, even the dissatisfaction with the way we are procuring power, and even the way we are transmitting. The issue of losses, the way is Kenya Power losing us a lot of power? Because when you lose a lot of power, it also goes to affect the bill.
Yeah.
So essentially, what I would say is that as a regulator, we ensure that the tariff you pay is the correct tariff. And as I've said, although we didn't have a lot of time to dwell on these matters of pricing, the tariff that consumers pay is not an afterthought. It has gone after rigorous analysis has been done, rigorous investment decisions have been done. And remember, even the companies and the development partners who support the sector, they do a lot of due diligence. And one of the due diligence is assessing even the issues of affordability. And even for us as a regulator, even when you look at the over 13 million households we have in Kenya, about 6 million of them could be below the poverty line. And we ensure that they also pay a tariff that they are able to afford. And that's why we have, for example, the Lifeline tariff. We are in the process of even having like the electric cooking tariff, so that you can ensure that people cook using electricity, because you cannot cut trees any longer. So I think we will ensure that the process is transparent.
Yeah.
We engage, and also when we begin to go out and talk to stakeholders, people should be able to query and ask us all the other questions. There is not fear, and that's why the Constitution empowers you as a citizen of this country to query the various cost elements that are in your bill. The energy charge rate, the fuel energy cost, the forex adjustment, the inflation, the WALM, all these things. And the reason why we actually, if you have been following Norman, we have been publishing every quarter.
Yes.
We have been actually sharing this information with the public.
Yeah.
Biannually, we even publish in our energy and petroleum statistics report,
Yes.
the tariffs. The reason why we do it, for transparency, for accountability, because we do believe we are accountable to the people of the Republic, and any input that goes into what they pay, they need to know.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Dr. Mutua, for really finding time and engaging us and unpacking the issues that consumers hold so dear. And for you, the consumer, we thank you so much for having really listened, watched as Dr. Mutua unpacks the issues that are of concern to you. You can still access this particular recording, YouTube channels and other official channels. Thank you so much for being your host, Norman Mudibo. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Norman.